going to business school, and every week we had CEOs, entrepreneurs, celebrities coming to speak and share their stories. And I was fascinated by how people went from nothing to something. And one week I was told that this monk was invited, and I actually said to one of my friends, I said, I'm only going if we go to a bar afterwards, because I wasn't interested in hearing a monk's perspective on life. So my friend forced me to go. He promised me we'd go to a bar afterwards, and it changed my life. It was the most captivating presentation I've ever been to, and he spoke about selflessness and service and kindness, and it just got me hooked. So I spent all of my summer holidays from 18 to 22, aged 18 to 22, half of them working in the finance corporate world in suits and driving cars in London, and spending the other half living as a monk in India. And when I was 22, I decided to turn down my corporate job offers and go and live as a monk in India for 3 years. And half our days was silence and half of it was service. So we meditated for half the day, and the other half we were trying to serve humanity and make a difference in the world.
Wow. So that is why you decided to not just be in India and be a monk. You decided it's better to be able to share this knowledge.
Yeah, well, when I left and came back, I was in debt. I moved in with my parents, age 26, and I was trying to figure things out. But a lot of my friends now worked at large organizations, and they were going through stress and burnout and pressure. And so they started to invite me to speak at their companies about everything I'd learned as a monk. And I started to do that, and I started to see impact inside these organizations. But I really felt, I was like, this knowledge and wisdom needs to reach everyone in the world. It needs to reach further than just corporate boardrooms. So in 2016, only 3 years ago, I started making these videos, which were these wisdom bites. And thankfully, to all of you and many others who've watched them, they started to spread. And Arianna Huffington was someone who really supported them and gave me an early tipping point too.
Yeah. So the most, I think the most viewed, you had 365 million on the topic of pressure, basically stress. So what do you say to people about that?
Absolutely. I think it's something we all feel today. And the biggest pressure I think we feel is we're rushed by other people's timelines. We're rushed by the success and achievement of people around us, or we're rushed by the supposed success and achievements of others we see on social media. And the biggest thing I'd say is give yourself permission to take time. Give yourself permission to recognize that living your passion and creating a purpose takes time. For some people, they've waited till 30 or 40 or 50 or 60. We want it to happen in our 20s. But your best years are yet to come.
You can't do anything until you're actually aware of it anyway. First of all, you have to have the awareness, and I think some people may be hearing that for the first time, and then once you're aware, you can take steps. So I think gratitude is probably the most important thing that you can have, and you speak of that too. So what can people do today and include and speak about gratitude for a minute?
Absolutely. So one of the things about gratitude is that studies show that when you're in gratitude, when you're feeling gratitude, you can't be in another state. So you can't be angry or sad or disappointed when you're being grateful. So grateful for me is like a seed. And when you're grateful, you plant this seed in your life, which is going to grow a beautiful tree and shade and fruits. And it helps you avoid what I call weeds in our life. So when we're planting sadness or disappointment or anger, these are like weeds in our life. So every day I'm trying to plant seeds of gratitude. And I recommend doing it the first thing you do in the morning, but even more importantly, the last thing you do before you go to bed. Because when you do it before you go to bed, you wake up with gratitude in the morning. So it programs your mind to be grateful the next day.
Yeah, it's so easy to do. I think,
so easy.
I think, you know, sometimes it takes seeing a tragedy or seeing something for us to realize how grateful we are for our lives and just the smallest things. So gratitude is so important. Yeah, and do you feel like you're able to, because that's quite an extreme way to live. Everybody cannot do that. You did it. But now you're back living in this kind of world instead of that world. I was going to say
the real world,
but that is the real world also. But the hardest thing, I think, is people, and you talk about this, people talk about their identity and or what they think about themselves or what other people think about them and how that affects happiness.
Yeah, I don't believe you have to live like a monk to learn to think like a monk. We can practice the principles that people are practicing in the other world in our day-to-day right now. Because one of the biggest challenges we have is often our identity is wrapped up in what we think others think about us. So it's not even what they actually think or what we think about ourselves. We always ask people questions like, how do you think I look in this? Or what do you think I should do? And the real question that we should ask ourselves is, well, how do I feel I look in this? And what do I think I should do? And that's how we learn to develop trust and really understand our own intuition. And so that's what Thinking Like a Monk is all about. It's learning to understand yourself, have that self-awareness, and trust your own intuition.
Yeah, so important. Easier said than done for a lot of people, but it's so important. We wanted to give people in the audience a chance to ask him questions. One of the smartest guys I know as far as figuring out how to balance your life. Taylor Reynolds, where are you? Hi, Taylor.
Hey, Taylor.
Hi, Ellen.
Hi.
Hi, Jay.
Hi, what's your question?
How do I cope with the constant pressure from social media and society to always stay positive, have the perfect body, have the perfect marriage, and stay hustling? It feels impossible and overwhelming.
Yeah, that's such a great question. Thank you so much for asking that. And one of the first things is our relationship with social media. This is gonna sound really tough, but I want you to try it out. Please don't look at your phone first thing in the morning. It will change your life. Studies show that 80% of us look at our phones first thing in the morning before we see our partners, before we see our kids. And if we change that habit to wake up to something that inspires us, it could be your favorite quote, your favorite song, it could be a work of art that you love, a picture of your family. If you wake up and you feel inspired, that's gonna change everything. Try it out for a week and let me know what happens.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, it is a tough thing. I mean, with social media, it's not going anywhere. It's here to stay, and it's very beneficial in some ways, but we do stare at our phones and our computers way too much. All right, Amber Mearns. Where's Amber Mearns?
So I'm a mom of 6-year-old twins. I'm incredibly burnt out with the day-to-day tasks of caring for them and also, of course, everyday stressors. How do I pull myself out from the burnout and begin to find myself again and find purpose again?
So it sounds like you already have enough on your plate, so I don't want to add anything. But the one thing I'd love for you to do is find 2 to 3 minutes a day to ask yourself this one question. What's the one thing I can do today to make today a great day? If I feel like so many of us are trying to be the perfect parent, the perfect partner, the perfect person in the middle of a pandemic, being perfect is impossible as it is, but trying to do it right now. Let go of that judgment. Be compassionate with yourself.
And Amber,
Thank you so much.
I'll say, Amber, it's so important if you just have time to take a walk. If you just go out and because walking makes you take deep breaths, and just deep breaths can just change everything. It really calms you down. And just walking and getting out of the house and having alone time, it's like a walking meditation, which I love to do, walking meditations. And then it gives you ideas. You're creative. You think about what Jay is saying, like, what can I do to make me happy today? But walking,
Right.
I'm a big fan of walking. You must have opinions about what happened last Monday with, talk about social media, that was the only place you could see me. That's the only thing anybody uses. And last Monday, it was shut down for 5 hours.
Yeah.
And I think people were shocked by the impact that it had, and in a good way.
Yeah, I think it was the forced reset that we all needed, but didn't know we needed. And sometimes things need to shut down so that we can open up to new possibilities. And I feel for all of us, if you notice with our phones, sometimes they shut themselves down when we don't upgrade them and update them, when we don't reload or recharge them. Our body and minds need the same thing.
Yeah.
And so we get into this autopilot of doing the same thing again and again and again, our routines and our habits. And we need something like this to disrupt that pattern and say, hey, try something new.
But what happens when a phone doesn't shut down? I mean, how do we implicate that ourselves without waiting for something to do it for us?
I think that's a great question. We don't have to wait for something to break so that we can take a break. And one of the best ways to do that is something I call the 3 C's. So the first is coaching. What we need to do is try and take a small step in the right direction. What we try and do is we try and wake up 2 hours earlier. Just wake up 15 minutes earlier. We try and go to the gym every day. Go to the gym once a week to start off with. The second thing is consistency. One of the biggest mistakes we make is we try and change everything at the same time. We try and change our diet, our sleep schedule, our workout schedule. We try and change everything in the same week. Do 1 per week. And finally, community. You have to do things with friends. You have to take other people on the journey with you. So if you want to break a pattern or break a habit, this is the best way to start.
Yeah, it is easier to do something with somebody else, no matter what it is.
Yes.
All right, we're back with author and podcaster and now tea creator, Jay Shetty. And we have some questions from the audience. Krista Wyatt. Where's Krista? Hi.
Hey, Krista.
What is your question, Krista?
I have 3 daughters. 2 are in high school, 1's in college. 3 lovely girls. And how do I help them understand that social media is not always authentic or an accurate representation of other people's lives? What they're seeing on there is not a great place to go to for self-esteem or to, the comparison is always a problem too.
Yeah, so this is a really painful truth, but often I find that our parents aren't going to be the people that help us understand that. And the people that are going to help us understand that is by hearing people who have had these incredible experiences or have shared their highlight reel on Instagram, but then when you catch them in a deep moment, in a deep interview, they sometimes reveal what's really going on behind the scenes. And I think showing them that, I think showing younger generations these stories, these vulnerable moments that people have sharing the real journey behind the scenes, if they hear it from the people that they look up to, that's going to have a deep impact on them.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
And turns out Daniel, who I spoke to earlier, has a question. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, how's it going, guys?
Hey, Daniel, you're married to the school teacher, right? That's right, yeah.
Yes. So my question for you is, when trying to become more successful, what are some tools that you would recommend to make sure that you don't lose your self-identity in the process?
So I recently interviewed Bob Proctor, and he said something amazing to me. He said that money just makes you more of who you already are. And that really stayed with me because what I realize is that if you do a self-practice every day of taking an audit or an inventory of your intentions, so every day, every week, sit down and ask yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? If the reason is love, purpose, family, service, big check. Keep doing it, keep nurturing it. But if the answer is greed, revenge, comparison, envy, that's a weed. You want to pull that out. And so reflecting on that, but recognizing that your success will only make you more of already who you are. So if you're someone who wants to do good in the world, if you want to have a positive impact on people, the more successful you become, you're going to pass that on. I'm excited to see that happen for you.
Thank you.
Fantastic. This is Melanie Saifana? Melanie? Saifan, hi.
There you go.
Hi, Jay. So my question is, how do you become a leader when your temperament is being a follower?
So there's a beautiful thought which comes from the Stoic Aristotle. He said that if you can't be a good follower, you can never be a good leader. And so actually the temperament of a follower is inherent in being a good leader. Mm-hmm. Because as a follower, you know what people need, mm-hmm. what people are looking for, what inspiration they need, what motivation they need, what their concerns are, what their interests are. And so when you become a leader, just don't forget all of that you knew as a follower. And I think that's the biggest mistake. Leaders can forget what they did when they were followers, but that's your greatest strength, not your weakness.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
I love that. I think this is a perfect time for you to be here to help us through what is going on in the world. What wisdom can you share with us today?
Well, this year, I want our Mental Health Awareness Month to be all about our relationships. And I think there's 3 relationships we need to pay more attention to. The first, I want you to think about the person that comes to your mind when you think about sharing good news. Who's that person in your life that you can't wait to text, you can't wait to call? I want you to text them today or call them today when you have nothing to share but gratitude. Then I want you to think about the person that comes to your mind when you think about sharing bad news, when you're going through something difficult. And again, I want you to reach out to them and just let them know you're thinking of them. And then the third person is the person that you may forget about. This person maybe looks like they have it all together, their life looks perfect on social media, or maybe there's someone that you forget about because they're not as vocal. And I want you to reach out to them and just say, hey, I'm here for you. Tell me how you feel, tell me how you're doing. And I think if we can do that this Mental Health Awareness Month, then I think that's going to have amazing ripple effects.
I agree. That's amazing. People, I think everyone is having a hard time. There's so much going on in the world, and I think people need advice on, I mean, for me, obviously, meditation is free, but a lot of people have a hard time meditating, which is why calm is important. We'll talk about calm in a minute. But what can people do that's free that can help change what's happening to them taking all this in?
Yeah, so I read about something really amazing recently that scientists call the awe effect. And what that means is when we look at things like beautiful landscapes or beautiful views or just beautiful aspects of nature, we all experience something called awe. And the reason why it's so special is because we feel really tiny, but we feel like we're a part of something bigger. And that's what awe is. And so what I recommend is getting out there and walking to a top of a hill where you can see the view. All of our life today is consumed in looking at things up close. We look at our phones, we look at our screens. Allow yourself to look into the distance, the vastness of the sky. And that way, awe is free for each and every one of us every single day, just by looking out into nature, just by looking out at the sky. And so we can all experience that special awe that scientists talk about.
I love that. Just changing perspective. Every single night before I go to bed, we take the dogs out and I look at the stars.
I love that.
And just looking at the stars, I'm reminded every single night about, you know, this beautiful universe we're in. We are all affected right now by 24/7 news cycles. Even if you try to avoid it, it's there. So well, you told me something recently, how it's affecting us all and the amount in 24 hours. You want to share that?
Yeah, well, we were talking about this, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, and it was this study that I read a few years ago that said that we're exposed to more tragedy in 24 hours than we were in our whole lifetime 25 years ago. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed or burnt out, it is totally normal. It is so okay, and that's why what you do is so important, because you're giving us that moment in the day of love, of joy, of beauty. And I would say that we have to be sensitive to this 2 times of the day specifically. The first is when we wake up in the morning. When you wake up in the morning, make sure you select your thought really wisely. Make it love, make it kindness, make it gratitude, make it an affirmation that you loved. And then the thought just before you go to bed. Make that thought really selectively. Tell your partner you love them. Tell your children you love them. Share a thought of love with someone who's not even there with you in that physical moment. We've got to be really sensitive of our exposure to the news, to notifications at these 2 times.
Yeah, that is really important. The first thing you wake up
Yes.
and before you even get out of bed.
Absolutely.
And then we were also talking about something I want to share with the lotus and the mud.
Yeah, so we lost a very special soul in the world recently called Thich Nhat Hanh. He was a Tibetan monk. And he had this beautiful phrase that he would say, no mud, no lotus. And if you've never seen a lotus flower, I highly recommend you go and inspect one, because it's phenomenal to see how it grows through the mud. It's like the rose from concrete. And we keep growing as a lotus, which is what I love that you're always pushing us to do, when we choose love. And that's how you get the lotus in the mud.
I love that. I love that. We have to remember that. We have received over 100 audience questions for you, so we have time for a few, but we'll start with this one. And it is Monica Salazar. Where's Monica? Hi, Monica.
Hi.
Hey, Monica.
Oh, man. Ellen said my name. Thank you. I just want to say both of you are so special, and we need people like you right now during all of these times.
Thank you, Monica.
So learning that you were going to be on today, Jay, as a working mom, wife, sister, friend, I tend to put myself last a lot. How can I break through and make that and keep up that consistency to prioritize myself for my mental health, but not go back to old habits?
Yeah, that's a great question. And first of all, I want to say, too, that when Ellen first said my name, I felt the same way. So I'm still with you. I'm right there with you. I really believe that there's something that psychologists talk about, which are called effective days and efficient days. So efficient days are when you do a lot of things. You cook, you clean, you do the laundry, you check off everything off your to-do list. And then there are effective days where you do important things. You may not do as many things, but you do one thing that makes a big difference. And as a mom, as someone who's juggling, as someone who has to balance a lot, I would ask yourself to be less judgmental of yourself and ask yourself, is today going to be an efficient day or an effective day? And that way you lose that judgment, you lose that self-criticism, and you allow yourself to recognize that you need both those days, And some days you're gonna tick everything off your to-do list and you're gonna feel great just because you do that. And some days you won't do any of your to-do list, but you'll do one thing for yourself and you'll feel better just because of that. So I hope that helps.
It does. I needed
Thank you,
that.
Monica. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Monica. All right, Jonathan Malvez. Jonathan Malvez, where are you? Hi.
Hey, Jonathan.
Thank you. Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
So my question is, what can one do on a daily basis to stay motivated to reach their goals that they set out for themselves? Like for me, I stay motivated for like the first week and a half, and then I kind of start to decline. So what can one do to kind of stay on that same track, I guess?
So I'm gonna share something really interesting with you that I figured out a while ago. And it's this idea that when you're doing things that are good for you, you never wanna do it before. It never feels good before, but it always feels good after. So if you think about going to the gym or eating healthy, when you think about that in the morning, you think, I don't want to go to the gym.
Yeah.
But then when you come out of the gym, you feel amazing and you think, I never not want to go to the gym. So what we have to do is we have to strengthen our memory of how things feel after.
Gotcha.
After you feel motivated, after you do something good for yourself, write it down, tell a partner or a friend and say, hey, never, I do this with my wife all the time. Every time I come back from the gym, I say, next time I tell you I don't want to go to the gym, remind me that I said this to you and that I had a great time. So allow yourself to build that accountability where someone in your life can remind you, actually, you always feel good when you do things that are good for you.
Got it.
So I hope that helps, Jonathan.
No,
Thank
it
you
helps
so
a lot.
much.
Thank you so
I
much.
love that,
Thank
Jay.
you.
All right, more with Jay after this. And before we go, I want to, obviously, I'm about to go through a whole huge life change. I mean, this has been 19 years of my life. It's going to be a huge change for me. And I don't even know how I'm going to feel after this. But there are a lot of people who are ending chapters and starting new chapters. So what advice do you have for anyone who is ending something that they've been doing for a long time and it's all of a sudden over?
The first thing I'm going to do is invite you onto my podcast because you just mentioned it. So I was like, I have to take this opportunity. But Ellen, when I think about what you've done over the last 19 years as a viewer, as someone who's been a fan, as someone who adores what you do and what you stand for, I have been blown away with the impact you've had. And saying goodbye and moving on from something that you love so deeply is challenging. And I think, as you said, everyone has that experience. I would say that as a society, we're very good at emphasizing the end of things and forgetting that the end of anything is the beginning of something else. And I think if we all thought about the best moments in our life, the most memorable moments in our life, I guarantee you, it would be when something changed. You don't think about when things stayed the same as the best moments of your life. The best moments of your life were transitions, transformations, and yes, they were painful in that process, but when you look back, you think, I changed, and that's what made this change in my life. So there's a beautiful Zen teaching of old. It's been repeated for years, but I want to share that with you today. And it says that letting go is hard, but holding on is harder. And I think so many of us are trying to hold on to something, and it makes it harder and harder. And I just really believe that your legacy, your impact is going to continue to change lives. You have so much to look forward to, and I can't wait to see how you continue to inspire love in the world. I really can't. So I'm excited.
I can't wait too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jay. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.